Well, thank you so much for joining us on our council preview program, and we're going to talk about budget number 3 meeting first before we have our regular common council meeting, which is going to be taking place on October 24th on a Tuesday. So Steve Barg is here. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me, Tom. It's really a crazy time of year. As we tape this right now, several of our council members are actually in Green Bay for the annual League of Wisconsin Municipalities Conference. So in the midst of all the busyness, they're still learning and growing, and that's a good thing.
That is a good thing. All right. Well, like I said, this is going to be our third budget meeting with the Common Council, and that meeting is going to take place 5 o'clock before the regular meeting. So let's talk about what's going to be going on there, and then talk about some high-level information about how we spend our money.
That'd be great. Yeah, this is the third meeting, and at the first meeting, back on October 10th, we got through all the department information. The second meeting was really up to the council to talk about where they wanted to take it. Staff gave a little update on some new information, but a lot of good discussion on some topics. The staffing issue, we're looking to add 3 firefighter paramedics. We talked a little bit about the clinic case and how that might play in, where we have a tax claim against us that could end up in the city having to pay back some money. We discussed just a wide variety of topics, and they got into some of the issues with respect to some of the particular departments and how they spend. So we'll look for something probably similar again this next time around. But you know, it's a third meeting. There'll be a fourth one on Thursday, the 26th potentially, 48 hours later, not that long, if we need to. But hopefully we'll wrap it up on Tuesday night, the 24th, and be able to move forward.
All right, so if we are able to wrap it up, it's not done. There's still going to be a public hearing after that, correct? And not until the 21st of November, is that right?
Correct, yeah, that's when we expect to invite the public in and have them have the final look at it before we move on. I guess we can talk about the tax rate issue here in a minute, but there's a whole lot of things that we maybe need to try to explain to the public so they get a sense of how this might impact them. But for right now, that's the agenda, fairly short and sweet.
All right. Well, I'm interested in learning more about what we spend our money on. I think our residents would want to know that as well.
I think so too. Where does your dollar go? First of all, where do the dollars come from, and how do they fit in? Because a lot of people think that the entire government is financed by property taxes. That's not true. About a third of it is. We get, well, I'm sorry, more than that. About a half of it is, I mean. We get 52% of our annual budget from property taxes. So about 1 out of every $2 that we spend comes from the citizens in our community. About a third, 34%, comes from what we call intergovernmental revenues. That's state aid. It comes in general form, comes in the form of transportation, connecting highway aids, computer aid, some odds and ends, but mainly a broad shared revenue category. And then the remainder, which is about 13%, is just real miscellaneous fines, public charges for services, licenses that you get if you need to, whether you're getting a dog or whether you're getting a bartender's license, whatever. Really, a collection of miscellaneous at that point makes up the difference. So that's where your money comes from into the purse. Where it goes, probably not surprising, 40% goes to public safety. Public safety is police and fire service. If cities do nothing else, I think that's what people expect to have. Protect me, please. Protect myself, my family, and my property. The next biggest category is public works, streets, engineering, those kind of things. And that takes up about 20%. So if you think about it this way, Tom, out of every $5, 2 go to police and fire, 1 goes to streets, engineering, and those related categories. Then you're left with the remaining $2 split up between general government, we call culture and recreation, that's parks, trails, the community center, for the seniors and all of us, and then down to the smaller portions. So that's kind of the way it lays out in terms of how your money is spent ultimately.
All right. Well, that does give us a good picture to see where it is. But yes, public safety, and that is pretty much going to be municipal-wide throughout the country, I think. Right?
It is. When we talk to our peers in places like Stevens Point, Wisconsin, Rapids, Wausau, 40% or thereabouts. Some cities might be a little higher, might be a little lower. Goes toward those essential services. And I shouldn't say it like that because I think all of our services are viewed as essential by public. They want good parks, they want good streets, they want everything, but police and fire are oftentimes referred to that way, and that is where the lion's share of the money goes.
All right. And some of that money in public safety, again, is not all taxpayer money, correct? I mean, it'd be maybe
Correct.
a mix of some of this in there.
Oh, it
right?
is.
Okay.
It is. Again, it's dividing the dollars that come from state aid and the taxpayers and fines and penalties and all that.
All right. Anything else on these graphs that you wanted to show?
It's interesting how it shows how some of the special funds are used. I guess the main thing is we borrow about $4 million per year, and that's mainly to do street projects. So one of the areas that takes up a lot of our money is just paying back our debt.
Okay.
And some people will say, wait a minute now, there must be interest with that. Well, there is interest with that, but there's no way you can finance the kind of capital projects that we do without taking on debt. And what we do when we take on debt, Tom, is we have it so that not only are the current residents paying for it, but future residents. Mm-hmm. So you and I, let's say we moved out of the community and then new people bought our homes in 2028. Well, they ought to be paying for a share of those roadways too, because so having it be over a 20-year period really does spread it out among all the people who will benefit from those improvements.
One last question I have on the budget is, will we get a percent, like a mill rate, given to us before the public hearing?
Before the public hearing in November, certainly. Normally we would have a tax rate being floated right now, a mill rate. You hear both terms, tax rate, mill rate. The reason we don't right now is because we're still trying to nail down all the numbers from the recent revaluation. Okay. So what you need to do is have the assessed value into the picture to determine what you're dividing the total amount of spending. Now, our levy is fixed. We're only levying about $80,000 more than last year. That's the maximum the state would allow. And it might sound to the public like, you're going to the max? What is this? Mm-hmm. Well, that's a very small percentage of an increase over last year, about 0.7% increase. So what will happen, Tom, is the tax rate right now is $10.62 per thousand, and it'll fall to probably 8 or 8.5 or something. And that's simply because the assessed value went up by a lot. I think overall the assessed value went up by 30-some percent. So as a result of that, the amount of money we have to spread that collection over is broader. So that'll bring down the tax rate. But the tax, what you pay in taxes will depend upon whether or not the value of your property went up more or less than the average. Because what we're mainly doing, for the most part, broadly speaking, is recarving the pie with a little bit of an increase. So if you're listening to me right now and you later get a tax bill in December and you say, hey, mine went up more than that, what's Mr. Barg talking about? There will be some that may go up more. There will, depending upon how much the value of your property increased compared to other property owners. But like I said, I want you to know that we're not collecting much more than we did in 2023.
Right. And, our total value of all our homes or property is... Boy, it's close to $1 billion, I bet.
Yeah, it is. It's over that.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It's actually close to $2 billion.
Yeah. So then you divide. That's how that works.
Correct.
How you get that mill rate number.
You're dividing it out.
You're dividing it out, and that's ultimately why it's going lower, because this has gone up.
Correct.
Otherwise,
so the tax rate will be lower. And when you look at tax rates from other communities, you always have to find out where they stand in their. Because if they're about to have a revaluation, they're up here. If they've just had one, they're down here. Yep. And so you have to kind of consider that.
But 1062 is still a very reasonable rate.
Oh, very competitive.
Because the other communities, like Rapids, is quite a bit higher.
It is. Rapids is around 13.
Yeah.
Point and Wausau are in the same place we are, roughly 10.5 to 11. So we're very competitive with our neighbors.
Yeah. So, all right. So tune in at 5 o'clock on Tuesday to watch that budget meeting, and then right after that, I think it's right after, or is it at 7, our next meeting?
We're posting it now at 6:30 or after the special budget meeting. What we don't want is for people to come and sit around for something they don't want. Yep. But we also don't want to have a situation where we're just all sitting around. If we put it at 7 o'clock, I think we might be done earlier, and then the council is going to say, well, we have to wait for 45 minutes for what? So we think that the budget meeting will probably last an hour, a little over an hour, or whatever. You can always have 15 minutes in between for the cable TV thing to be worked out, and also for get a drink, go to the bathroom, whatever.
Sure.
Just standing up from your chair is a good thing. So this will start at 6:30. It could be a little bit later, and we'll get to the regular business.
Sounds good. All right. So let's move into that meeting that's taking place, like Steve said, at 6:30 or a little later, depends. Let's talk about the consent agenda, because there's no really anything in here about recognitions.
Not this time.
Point.
There's no employment anniversaries, apparently.
Yep. So as of now, maybe
Correct.
This hasn't gone out
It's
yet.
not final.
Not final.
Not final. True.
But tomorrow it will. All right, let's
Yep.
talk about this consent approved 2024 contracts, ambulance services with neighboring municipalities. I know this has been chatted about, not because it's in here, but just overall during our process of looking at funding fire.
Yeah, it's noteworthy in particular this time, Tom, because there's been a lot of talk about our EMS, our ambulance fund, and the costs are going up. We want to make sure we've got enough, paramedics to serve the needs. We do serve 13 villages and townships and around our surrounding area, and we provide them with ambulance services, and they pay us contract fees for that service. Now, the question that's come up recently is if our ambulance costs are going up, are the surrounding towns and villages paying their fair share? Because we don't, while we like having them with us, it's good for everybody, good for public safety in the region, we don't want to be subsidizing those municipalities. Mm-hmm. So we took a look at it, and we've looked at it hard, and what we're proposing here for the council to approve is just a CPI, an inflationary adjustment of 3.4%, the current consumer price index, and that's what all these contracts reflect. So, if you're looking at the town of McMillan, last year they paid $66,401. We're proposing $68,659. That's a 3.4% increase. Now, some people, I know the council might be wondering when we talk about this, well, wait a minute, if our expenses are going up, shouldn't they be paying more? But we did look at kind of per capita what we pay citizens here versus per capita what they pay in the towns. And we're really in a place that it's reasonably fair. So we're looking for an inflationary adjustment for them to keep up with the increasing cost of supplies and equipment and all that.
Okay. So this is just EMS. This is not counting fire because most of these have their own volunteer fire department.
Just EMS.
So actually, a pretty good deal. I mean, if you had to have your own EMS, you'd quadruple those numbers.
Yeah, and they don't really have a lot of choices. I mean, I know there's private ambulance services out there that they might be able to contract with, but they get good service from us. We're very proud of our service. And I think, I've been here for 12 years now, Tom. I have not heard any complaints from town supervisors about the service they get from the city in terms of the ambulance. So I think it's a good service. I think it works for everybody. The money helps us in terms of our total cost, and it's certainly a good deal for them to have their citizens covered for, the prices that we're asking.
Yeah. Excuse me. All right. Well, let's see what happens in the consent if that's pulled out or just voted on. Okay, you put another piece in here, Board of Public Works, which met on the 16th. Approval of a 14th Street reconstruction project, if I'm reading this right, and then our asphalt paving list, which is a big deal as well.
Right. Let's start out with 14th. I know that everybody's excited about the fact that we finally did East 17th Street in the same area over by the fairgrounds, and from Maple to Peach, that looks wonderful. It's great, especially at fair time, right? Because it's a much improved roadway from what we used to have. Well, this is East 14th Street, same general area, but from Maple to Vine, smaller area. But it's been in need for a while, and we were able to use some monies we got left over from the ARPA program, the federal program that tied back to COVID days, and some other monies to help offset costs. So we are bidding out right now to get somebody to do the consulting work to design the improvement, which we hope to do in 2024. And the low bidder was Gremmer out of Stevens Point at $57,000 and change. So the Board of Public Works has looked at this, and they are recommending to the council that we choose Gremmer of a Point as our consultant to do the legwork for us to be able to do this project.
Wow, that's quite a bit of difference. All this is public knowledge, I would assume, here that I'm looking at.
Yeah, it is.
Between MSA, Gremmer, and I don't know how to pronounce that last name.
Becker Hoppy, I think.
Becker Hoppy, thank you. So, but we don't always have to go with the lowest bid, is that right?
We don't in this kind of thing. We do when it's actually bidding out the work itself to actually dig up the surface and redo it. But for a consultant, we don't. We could have gone with somebody else. Sometimes when you see a big variety in terms of the proposal prices, you wonder if they all understood the project the same. So sometimes our engineering staff will go back and say, just to make sure that, do you understand the full amount of what you're bidding on here because your price is different than others or whatever. But in this case, Gremmer is a very good firm. We've dealt with them before. We feel very positive about them. The total cost of the project, as you see there in that memo, Tom, is $1.5 million. That includes some water work that's being done as part of it. But it's an improvement that we've needed for a while, and now we've got some extra dollars to help us get that one to the finish line. So we're excited about moving that forward.
Okay. So just double check here or make sure I'm understanding and giving this to the public. Right. This is just really for engineering services at this point.
Correct.
It's not for the entire project. And we normally don't use engineering services. We're short-staffed. I think that's why, isn't it, somewhat?
It depends on the project. I mean, we have used MSA, Gremmer, and those folks before. Sometimes on smaller projects, I think we probably do it ourselves. But it's not uncommon, Tom, for us to use a firm like this to design a major
maybe this is I'm trying to think where the road is. Maybe it does sound like a major road.
Well, and it's reconstruction too. It's not. It's a bigger project, and we're happy to have them on board with us.
Not like what we're talking about next, this asphalt paving list, which is a little bit different. That's not a whole reconstruction. That's grinded up, right?
Grind it up and lay it down with 2 inches of asphalt over it. That we call it mill and overlay.
Yeah, so that's what
resurfacing. So the new list has come out. And you can see this online. It'll be in the agenda packet tomorrow, and then I think even after it's approved, we'll get it out there somewhere on the website so people can see, hey, is my street going to be redone and when? And, you know, this is kind of a fluid thing. We've talked about this before. So if you look at this list and you see that your street is going to be redone in 2025, keep an eye open on it. You know, look back at it, because sometimes it can be moved up or moved back based upon what the freeze-thaw cycle of winter causes or the wear and tear on streets. Sometimes we move them up in the list, back in the list. We try to do the most problematic, you know, ones with the biggest cracks and the biggest problems first. But you're looking at the list, Tom, there's probably about a dozen or so on each one of these 3 years from 24 through 26. They cover the entire city, you know, they're not all just in one area. They include some downtown alleys that we've wanted to accomplish, some resurfacing, and you know, check it out and see if you're on the list.
Sure.
And ultimately, there may be some charges to you as part of this for the benefits to you, but most of the cost is picked up by the city.
But you know, even none of this is going to happen right away. They would have meetings for the public and let people know, right?
Good point, Tom. Okay. Public information meetings held usually in the City Hall council chambers. Where you can actually sit down and the staff will get together and they'll say, okay, now wait a minute, here's the map. Okay, that tree, we can save that tree, or your driveway needs to be whatever. Get real personal service. And then you can find out more about the assessments. You can certainly challenge the assessment if you think that you're being asked to pay too much. And when you do get an assessment for it, you have 10 years to pay that cost too. You don't have to pay it all in one lump sum.
That's right.
So we try to work with people as best we can.
Okay, so this $2 million and some change is a loan though, right? Is that we have to take a loan to do this kind of work?
Well, yeah, and the majority of the cost is ours. I mean, out of that out of the 2.4 million, we're probably going to assess total of 10% of that or something. I don't know, but but initially we have to cover the full cost.
We still have to. We don't have it in our bank account. We're just going to write a check for that.
No. We have to pay the contractor for the work.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk. That's it in consent, I believe, that you highlighted.
It is.
And when you came in, you said you're going to put chicken ordinance on this agenda.
Yeah, it's been about since August, I think.
At least
we talked about chicken ordinance. People are probably wondering what happened to that. We had first reading, and then there was a lot of discussion about some things, and we got involved in discussions at City Hall. One of the things was, who does it apply to? A little bit of confusion. The intent is for it to apply to single-family lots in certain districts. If you read it a certain way, the way it came forward back in July, it looked like anybody in those districts. So if you lived in a duplex or a fourplex or whatever, if you lived in a district that was considered single-family, maybe you had a conditional use permit or whatever, you could have one. The problem with that is we're not trying to be too restrictive, but if you live in a duplex, let's say you live in a side-by-side, that idea that you can have a chicken coop right behind you, now you're really impacting somebody. It's not 20 feet away as a neighbor's lot line or something. It's the person right next to you picking up the effect. So the intent was for it to be single-family lots only. So we clarified that now in the updated one. We've also taken a look at some things that needed to be looked at in terms of who's doing it. We've moved it from the clerk's office to the Development Services Department. It's not a license anymore you're getting. It'll be a permit. And the reason is in part because the ordinance officers, for those who know, they deal with animal issues and a lot of other things. They're now working with our Development Services Department, and they're actually called zoning administrators along with being ordinance officers. So the people who will be doing the inspections and everything are really part of Development Services. So it makes sense for the permit to be issued through Development Services, so the inspections and everything can be there. The clerk's office really won't have much to do with this. We also looked at some things about the way the chicken coop must be secure. We looked at the fencing requirements again. Anyway, we're bringing it back for first reading. And some people are going to say, you're sending this back to first reading? Well, you can only go to second reading, Tom, when the changes are what we call housekeeping, little minor changes in wording. The changes here are significant enough to where the city attorney is advised, you need to do a first reading. You need to start this process over. It's a somewhat different ordinance than it was back in July.
We never did get to a second reading, though, did we?
No.
So we had no vote anyway.
We didn't vote to adopt it.
So we don't know, but it was moved from the Plan Commission originally.
Yep.
So that was favored, but we don't know what the council's thinking right now, if it's even going to go or not.
No. I think there's some general support, but whether it'll get to the finish line or not, we don't know.
All right. Well, the first step is on Tuesday to see what's happening, and then it'll be moved to the next agenda already in November.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay. You've got a lot of stuff highlighted here. We'll try to go through it because we only have a little bit of time.
Maybe take it as a block.
Yeah. Why don't we do it? You have it as a block.
Yeah.
And this is really a lot of HR stuff. So
It is. It is. It's the time of year when we renew all of our employee-related insurances, and there are several on here. Our employee health insurance, which is with Security Plus, our Security Health Plan, I should say, and we've got a really good renewal, no increase. And not often you get a premium with no increase. That's because our using of our health plan has been low. You know, employees are being very good consumers of their health care dollar. We also have the same thing with Delta Dental. There's no increase expected there, so we'll renew that for dental insurance. And we have others for vision, for dependent care. If you have a child care issue, you know, and you run that through the 125 plan. And then finally, approving a city contribution of money toward the city's HSA accounts. The city does offset some of the cost of the rising deductibles that employees pay by putting a little bit of money in their health savings accounts. We've done that for years now. It's a way of kind of offsetting the ultimate cost that employees face. But certainly, you know, it doesn't come anywhere near matching the deductibles. But we want to keep that going and make sure people can fund. It's a good way to be able to cover some of those odds and ends medical costs that come up during the year.
Isn't that already planned in the budget for 2024
It is.
anyway?
It is. It's 600, right, it's in the budget. So if they were to not approve it, we'd strip that out of the budget.
You'd have to, yeah, okay.
And the reason we put it in the budget is because this is year, 6 or 7 that we've done this. It's a routine order of business, but you know, the council has talked about this before if they have concerns about it budgetarily. But it's remained at $600 for single, $1,200 for family ever since we put it into place back in maybe 2017, somewhere back there.
Yeah, no, it's not unique.
It's not. And I think
a lot of municipalities do this.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct, because the cost of health insurance is rising a lot, and this offsets a portion of it.
Especially, you know, a lot of changes. Maybe there. I don't know if there is a change in the copays. Maybe there will be a little bit.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
I think there's a slight change in the deductible itself.
Right, that's what I meant.
So, yeah.
And that's where that helps families or individuals. So, all right. So, police station. This is a big one.
Yeah, this will be a continuation of what we did 2 weeks ago at the last regular meeting on October 10th, and that is talking about what to do next. You know, you and I talked about this 2 weeks ago, I'm sure, but we have a chance to take possession of what we call the Buffalo Building down across from Hotel Marshfield. And no cost, going to donate it to us to get a tax write-off. But before we do that, is this going to work? And the council's looked at the price tags. They're not cheap. I mean, it's going to cost anywhere from $13,000 to $15,000. $13,000 to $15,000. Yeah. That was really, really wishful thinking.
Yes.
$13 to $15 million to renovate that building for a police station. So the council's asking a lot of good questions about, well, what would happen with the old building? You know, downtown, the old city, the old police station. What are we taking off the tax roll? How much are we going to lose in taxes by buying it and then no longer having a tax-paying business? A whole lot of things are coming up in questions. Some members of the council are going to be touring that building soon to take a look at the interior, get a sense of how easy it's going to be to remodel it and what the challenges are. So we're going to continue that discussion, Tom. You'll probably see this on the agenda in a lot of meetings going forward until we decide. The building owner, the property owner wants us to decide by the end of the year, are you going to do this? You know, he wants to know that. Otherwise, he will look at selling to a private buyer who might want to purchase the building.
Sure.
So we've got time yet, but we've got to figure out if it's going to be, we don't have to build right away or remodel right away, but is this going to be a goal that we're going to take the property and make this into a police station?
All right, sounds good. And that property is no cost to the city right
Correct,
now.
it'd be donated.
Yeah. So a little bit different than maybe like with the property we had to buy by the post office. What is that? Was that
Oh, the Baltus building?
Yeah, we had.
We bought that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this building, just so people know, and there are needs. I mean, it needs some roof work. It needs some, I think, heating and electrical work. But with a starting price of $0, it does give you some opportunity. And we're definitely exploring the possibility of putting a police station down there.
All right. Another piece, moving around some council members on a commission. Is that what this is about? Just to fill?
Yeah. Well, sometimes people get on a commission or a committee from the council and they realize that it's not working for them. The meeting time doesn't work, or maybe they find out it's not really what they thought it was and they want to swap. So what we have here doing is, and this was brought up at the end of the last meeting by Councilmember Tompkins, that she and Councilmember Giles swap a little bit, or at least they do one trade here. The idea being that Brian Giles would be appointed to the Fairgrounds Commission, replacing Natasha Tompkins. And Natasha has been appointed recently, to the Utilities Commission, and that's a big responsibility. We have a lot of committees, boards, and commissions. You know that, obviously, Tom. Oh, yeah. But some take more time and energy than others. And so I think she kind of looked at it and said, well, the Fairgrounds Commission, I'm a busy person. I don't mean to be talking for Natasha, but and now I'm doing this thing with utilities, and they have a lot of meetings, and there's a lot to learn. And Brian Giles was fine with getting on that commission. He decided he'd be happy to serve on what's going on at Central Wisconsin State Fair and that kind of thing. So they're looking at making that trade for her to him to take over her role, and we're looking to get that done. In fact, we're looking to suspend the rules and just have it done because there's no reason to have a second reading on that. They've agreed to it themselves.
I was trying to think, that's not normally a mayor appointment, how that works, or is it?
Well, it is initially.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, the Utilities Commission one isn't. That's a council vote.
Yeah, that one is different
than all. But the Fairgrounds Commission and Brian Giles going on that is something that typically the mayor would be appointing.
But has to be voted on by the council still.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. And if the two of them agree, I'm finding it hard to believe that they're not going to.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah. All right, and then that was the end on your agenda as of today. Here, that's pretty short. It's not too bad, but it could be.
As we talk on Thursday afternoon, Tom, the 19th, it's very rare that we don't have at least one closed session, but we don't. Having said that, if you put this meeting together with the budget meeting before it, it'll be a full night. I mean, I picture the council coming there at 5 o'clock and still being there until 8 or something.
So I do as well.
It's not as short as it might seem.
All right. Well, I will be there, and we will be filming both of these live. So if you don't have cable TV, no worries. You can watch it streaming on two websites, marshfieldbroadcasting.com or ci.marshfield.wi.us. I have been putting a link right at the home page. If you see the big gavel there's a link there, and you can click on that to watch the live meeting, or if you missed it, I'm also putting the replay link there as well. I'm trying to make it easy for everyone to find it and quick, and hopefully that helps everyone out. Yeah,
and we appreciate all that you do, Tom, you and David, and I'm just going to make my one appeal one more time. If you have any thoughts at all on the budget, how we spend money, how we tax, whatever, please call us, email us, come to the meeting. We really do want to hear from the public. We hear way too little for what we want, because we know that there's almost 20,000 people in this community, and there's probably a lot of ideas, good ideas that would help us. So please weigh in if you have any questions or concerns.
All right. All right. With that, Steve, we'll close out and come back later on. Possibly we'll see where the two budget meetings go, but otherwise the beginning of November. So thanks again for coming. I want to thank you all for watching our council